I would like to apologize for the long wait on this video. Sometimes I'll make a part 1 of a series but never make a part 2. And the reason for this is I could not find enough material to continue the series, or I'm still looking for stories and encounters to cover. And sadly, skinwalker sightings are hard to find, at least the ones that I would want to go over. And one of the reasons for this is most Navajo don't like to talk about skinwalkers, but they truly believe that they do exist. Now just to recap, it is believed that a skinwalker can change form into any animal that it has previously killed. Some Navajo say that it can steal the face of another human being, and can also transfer itself into another body if you stare into its eyes long enough. And throughout the years, there have been quite a few alleged skinwalker sightings. One very creepy sighting happened when a 15-year-old girl was visiting her grandma, and some of her teenage cousins. Her grandma lived in a remote area surrounded by trees and forest paths. And one night, they decided to take a walk on one of these paths that led them deep into the woods. And while they were walking, they heard some very strange animal sounds, and these sounds really freaked them out. Then they saw what they thought was a dog in the middle of one of these paths, just up ahead. And this dog was just staring at them. Its eyes were extremely bright. Then this dog started to slowly move towards them, and they realized this was not a dog. This was something else, something that would give them nightmares for the rest of their lives. They saw that this creature had the body of a dog, but its head, hands, and feet was that of a human. And these teenagers, scared beyond belief, ran back to their grandmother's house as fast as they could. Now once back inside, they locked all the doors and windows and tried to figure out exactly what it was that they had just encountered. And while they were debating amongst each other, they heard that strange, very eerie animal noise again, and it was getting closer and closer. Then they heard a knock on the window, and when they turned to look, they saw this creature again just staring at them. And this thing's face had changed, as it was now more animal than human. And the sounds of these kids' screams woke up the grandma, and when she came into the room, this creature was gone. Now the grandmother didn't believe their story, but she did believe that maybe somebody was stalking them or playing a prank on them, as she could see the fear on their faces. So she called the police. And according to this girl's story, the police did find her grandmother's dogs dead. They were ripped to shreds. Now after that night, they never saw this creature again, but they strongly believed that what they had encountered was a werewolf or a skinwalker. Another encounter happened to a man who was out camping one weekend. On his first day, he saw a coyote in the distance. At first, he really didn't think too much of it because it wasn't the first time he had seen a coyote. But as the camping trip progressed, he felt that this animal was stalking him because wherever he went, it was there, but in the distance. And when he was packing up his truck, getting ready to leave, he saw it again. And he kind of felt bad for it because he thought that it might be really lonely. Then once he was back on the road, he looked at his rearview mirror and it was now running after him. And this kind of freaked him out because he was going about 50 miles per hour. But when he looked back again, it was gone. Then he saw something in the corner of his eye right beside him. And when he looked, he saw a man covered in fur just staring at him with glowing red eyes and a strange, terrifying smile. And this man just froze. He felt paralyzed. He had never been so scared in all his life. He just couldn't comprehend what it was that he was seeing. Then this thing got back down on all fours and ran off back into the woods. Now after this life-changing encounter, this man is now convinced that what he saw on that day was a skinwalker, and he never wants to see another one ever again. Another similar case happened in the early 1980s when a young woman's car broke down at about 9 p.m. one night. And thankfully for her, she broke down close to a friend of her parents. So she decided to go visit them so she could call her father to see if he can come pick her up. And of course he agreed, as she lived in a somewhat remote forested area, and he did not want her to walk home all alone at night. Now the father picked her up around 10 p.m. and while they were driving through the woods, they heard a very loud, terrifying, unholy scream. It was so loud that they could hear it very clearly over the engine, over the radio, and even over them talking. And the father slammed on the brakes so he could try to make sense of what it was that he had just heard. This scream scared them both, as they had never heard anything like it before. It sent chills down their spine. And as they were parked on the side of the road, they saw a coyote standing on both legs walking towards them. Then they heard this scream again, and it was coming from this walking coyote. And the father, scared out of his mind, put his truck back into drive, and he just got the heck out of there. And he decided to take his daughter back to his house because he did not want her to go back to hers. And the next day, they actually went back to this location. They were hoping to come face to face with this creature again because they wanted some answers. They did not believe in skinwalkers or the paranormal, but they couldn't make any sense of what it was that they saw and heard. And since it was very dark, they both came to the conclusion that their eyes must have been playing tricks on them, or somebody was playing a prank on them. And at that time, they both shrugged the sighting off as a prank or misidentification. But as the daughter got older, and after a lot of research, she started to become a believer in skinwalkers, because deep down she always knew that nobody could have hoaxed that terrifying scream that she heard on that night. And not too far away from the sighting, a teenager was driving home with his uncle when they saw another coyote crossing the street. And this coyote moved very strangely, kind of like a toy rocking horse. And when it looked at them, it had very bright glowing red eyes. Then it just finished crossing the street and disappeared back into the wilderness. And this young male teenager didn't think too much about it, as he thought that maybe it was injured or something. But he did notice that his uncle was terrified. He didn't speak for the rest of the day. And once he got older, his uncle told him that what they saw on that day was a skinwalker, and he truly believed it. One of the more credible encounters that I have ever come across comes from a tribal police officer. One day he was driving on the highway and it was very lightly snowing when he saw what he thought was an older Navajo woman dressed in very traditional clothing walking on the side of the road. And this was very odd to him because there was nothing even close to this area. So he wondered, where was she coming from and where was she going? So this officer turned around to see if he can give her a lift, but she disappeared. She was nowhere to be seen. So he got out of his police car so he could scan the horizon and hopefully find out where she went. But he couldn't see her anywhere. But he did stumble upon some fresh footprints in the snow. So very curious, he decided to follow them. And while he was following them, he noticed that the footprints started to change. They turned into a dog or coyote prints. And this really scared him, so he ran back to his patrol car. And later that day, he told another tribal officer about what he had just witnessed. And this other officer told him that he had heard stories about this before, and it only seems to happen on that stretch of highway, and only while it's snowing. Sometimes it's an older woman, and sometimes it's a younger, very beautiful woman. And what they are doing is hitchhiking, making some of these Navajo officers believe that they are skinwalkers looking for victims, as who wouldn't pick up an older or younger woman while it was snowing in the middle of nowhere? Making me wonder if skinwalkers are involved in some of these missing 411 cases, as it seems that these magical beings like to hitchhike, follow people, and just scare us to death. And just maybe these stories that we do hear about are from the lucky ones that got away. Or maybe some skinwalkers aren't as evil as others. Now, I would really like to continue the series, but it's hard for me to find good, credible skinwalker sightings. So if you know of any, please let me know in the comment section below. Until next time, this is Paranormal Junkie. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned.